You are listening to the Boss Experience Podcast, a podcast with conversations about business growth, self-development, and maintaining a mindset to achieve business success. My name is Michele Davis, and I am a business strategist and coach, and I am your host. Let's get started. Michele Davis here, host of the Boss Experience Podcast. And I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to be honest with yourself. Is your coaching business stuck? Because if the revenue you generate from your coaching business is not putting you on the path to replace your 9-to-5 income, you probably are stuck. And I'm going to guess you don't know how to turn things around, but you're in luck. I'm hosting a free live webinar titled The Six-Figure Offer Blueprint, where I'm sharing how to implement and automate a process in your coaching business that takes someone from being a stranger to actually paying you as a client. All you have to do is head over to gemstoneconsultingservices.com/webinar to register. That's gemstoneconsultingservices.com/webinar to register for free, so you can start building your six-figure coaching business on autopilot. Okay, now back to the show. Welcome to the Boss Experience, the podcast that helps you design your irresistible offer and sell it 24/7. I'm here with Sherist Rodriguez, and we're talking about health. And I know, probably a couple of episodes ago, you probably thought, okay, I thought this was business planning. I thought the season was about business planning. And the thing about business planning is we forget that planning for us to be healthy is all part of that too. And as entrepreneurs, we run ourselves in the ground. We don't take care of our health. We don't eat properly. We consume what we can because we're so busy, doing what we think we need to do just to succeed in business. And Sherist is going to share with us, just how terrible that is to our bodies, what we're doing to ourselves. And I remember when I worked a 9-to-5, I was always a workaholic and I never took care of myself. I would sit at my desk, eat my lunch, if I even had lunch that day, or maybe I ate chips for lunch. Chips and yogurt was a go-to for me because that was quick. I could grab it and that's it. And I never took care of myself, and I didn't realize the damage I was doing to my body. And that carried with me into entrepreneurship as well. So Sherist and I just spent like an awesome weekend at a mastermind, and we connected on so many levels. And I said, I got to have you on to speak to my audience. And so she's here to share, just her journey, why she got into, this health and wellness niche. And I want you to get to know Sherist. And so I'm going to ask you to just share about what brought you here? Who are you?
Yeah.
And then what kind of brought you full circle to 2025, this health and wellness speaker, guru, coach?
Absolutely. Well, do we have a day or do we just have, I'm just kidding. Oh, wow. Well, thank you for having me here, first of all. I want to start off with talking about so many entrepreneurs, and I'm talking for myself, we struggle in silence with health, mindset, mental health, both physically and mentally. And the problem is that a lot of times we think it's just us, right? We think it's just us in that hustle bustle. We are so busy working on our businesses. I've been in business for 20 years now, and I feel like you said, sometimes having a job, it's the same thing. We're still hustling. If you were a hustler when you're working a 9-to-5, you're probably a hustler when you're working your business, and probably even more so, which means that your health does take the back seat. But the thing is that our health directly impacts the health of our business. 100%. And so I found myself in a crossroad. I struggled since I was a kid. I don't remember not having inflammation issues. Found out later on that it's like SIRS and a lot of autoimmune problems that I had. But that was driven from being in extreme childhood trauma. So being in a lot of, home with violence and stuff like that. And I didn't understand that until I was older, that my nervous system had been so dysregulated from a child that my body was in fight or flight very often. You might hear that term sometimes. Well, how does that relate to health? Well, if your body's in fight or flight, it's excreting certain hormones a lot, which are meant to only happen when we need to run from the big bear in the woods, not all the time. And so when our hormones are excessively, producing and our body is functioning at this level, it is rewriting our DNA, and it's interfering with the normal processes of our organs and our nervous system and our cells. And it's re-educating or educating the cells to produce in a different way, like, oh my God, right? And so therefore, that all ends up tying into how the heart functions, how the gut functions, how the brain communicates, because really the gut, we've been hearing more and more, which I'm excited to talk about, that the gut is actually the core of our brain. Everything goes from our gut to our brain. And so if that communication from the nervous system is dysregulated, imagine the messages that are being sent to the stomach. Like, oh God, worry, worry, worry. Okay, let's produce all these things. Let's create all this havoc. And so then we end up with gut issues. We end up with inflammation issues. We end up with digestion. We end up with so many issues. And so as an entrepreneur, I didn't realize that early on in my health that my dysregulated nervous system, my autoimmune stuff, my gut issues were affecting the brain fog and the issues I was having with making better decisions and stuff like that. And so I found myself, actually, it's interesting, how I got into holistic health. Number one, my grandmother on my dad's side used to have a garden in her backyard. And every time, like we would go spend summers in Florida with her, and I struggled with headaches all the time and stomach problems. And I was always crying, and they had been through all these MRIs and they couldn't figure anything out. And she'd just go to her garden and she would pick up all these herbs and all these things and make me something. And I would feel better when I was in Florida. I'd go back home and I was like back to that. And so I remember thinking about that throughout my life. And so when I was at my worst, my back, like I lost function of my back, all my discs crushed. It was like eventually my body gave up. And so I couldn't walk. And they were telling me I needed a surgery for that. And I refused. So I found a holistic practitioner who said, no, the body can heal itself if it's in the right environment, right? So we've got to go through and we've got to clean up the body a little bit. We've got to do some energetic releases of what emotions are trapped in the body, because believe it or not, emotions get trapped. And when we have those emotions, it affects us without consciously. We could be thinking we want to be super healthy while we're going and eating those chips you were talking about, right? You can have that intention, but if you are feeling like there's like, I want to do this, but then I don't do that, it's not really your fault. There could be first of all, the dysregulation. It could be parasitic overgrowth. It could be heavy metal toxin. It could be so many things that's happening in your body, and it's not always your fault. So I found this holistic practitioner, and it took us a while, but within a year, I was like walking again, and I was like starting to feel good, and I had lost a lot of weight, because when you're immobile, I gained a lot of weight. I had lost weight. I had started to go and start to weight train and like do different things. By 2 years after finding her, I completely reversed everything. And then by the time I was 40, I was in the best shape I had ever been. My blood results came back as if I was a 25-year-old, which before it was like I was a 60-year-old. And so that just fueled my passion to continue to learn about it. But I never, up until now, I hadn't necessarily incorporated it into my coaching and stuff that I do with entrepreneurs. It took me a little while to have another health crisis to really realize that it's my calling to do this. So that's just a long version, but kind of educational, I hope.
Yeah, and I think about the women that I work with and the women that I've worked with over the years. They're here, they are, they're building this coaching business to impact and help others when, I always tell them you have to heal yourself first. You have to heal yourself first because you can't help someone else make a transformation if you're unhealed. And the first time I realized I was unhealed, because of course I'm thinking, I'm X amount of age, and in terms of years I'm like 40, I'm 45, and I'm thinking, how does something from my childhood impact me now? It doesn't, right, is what I'm thinking. And then I remember I was working at this one job. It probably was earlier than 45 because it's been a while since I've been at that job, but in my previous life I used to run a domestic violence shelter. And so we got together as a team, the staff, and we took this assessment called ACEs, and it stands for Adverse Childhood
Experiences.
Experiences. And based on your score with this assessment, you're most likely to experience health issues.
Yeah.
And that was it was a rude awakening. I was the manager or the director, and I had the highest score in the
Wow.
room over my
Yeah.
team. They were more like maybe fours, fives, and I was a nine.
Yes.
I was a
Yes.
nine. That still didn't wake me up though. It wasn't
Right.
until I started getting like gut issues and other stuff was going on that I realized that I need to do some inner work before I start helping someone else. And although I'm a business coach, it starts with me. But I think if we're talking about being a coach, we're doing our clients a disservice
Right.
if we
Because
don't support them.
energetically,
Yeah.
not only, even the energetic vibration of dis-ease in the body has a frequency. So there's all this stuff around frequency medicine, which I geek out on all the time. Everything in our body has a different vibration. Cancer has a vibration. The microbiome, the parasites have a vibration. Like there's all these vibrations. And so here's an interesting thing. I found out recently last year that I had extreme mold toxicity. I had been exposed at that time, but I now look back to a couple other major exposures that I do attribute some of my mental health disclarity and issues to, because mold is, if you get that inside you, it is, well, actually, most people are living with mold toxicity and don't even know it. So if you are having certain type of health issues, it could be mold, which modern, our Western medicine, they don't look at that. So when I found that out, also when you have mold toxicity, you have lots of parasites because parasites eat mold and they eat all those toxins. So they reproduce inside your body. So I recently found out I had high loads of mold toxicity too. And the thing about it is like I was struggling with brain issues like severely. Like I was starting to feel like I was getting dementia, Alzheimer's, my short-term memory was really bad. I had a concussion, right? I had a brain injury that I just felt like some of what was happening was due to the brain injury, but I knew something deeper was there. And so when I did what we call a live blood analysis, my my blood work looked great, by the way. And this is something no one educates about. When you get your blood work, most of the time you will not see the dis-ease. We say dis-ease instead of disease because if you take it apart, it is dis-ease. Your body is in dis-ease. That's it. Disease is not permanent, but the blood work usually looks good. Now, while your body is doing its job to fight dis-ease or parasites or mold or acidic environments, it doesn't matter. While it's doing that, that dis-ease is not in the blood because it's the body's job to keep it out of the blood. So that's why all of a sudden you might get blood work, and then the next thing you know, it's stage 4 cancer, and you're like, I just had my labs done a couple months ago. Well, the body is doing a really great job to keep that inside, not to put it to the bloodstream, because once it goes through the bloodstream, the blood goes like I don't know, 100, like a ton of miles up and down the body in a day. So once it gets into the blood, that's when we're doomed. And so I had my blood test, everything looked great. Then I go get a live blood analysis which is where they draw the blood at the moment and put it on this like intense microscope where you could see everything. And that's where, I mean, you could see all the like the black mold, the aspergillus, you could see it all there, and you could see where my cells weren't able to cross through the barriers of the mold, which was meaning my cell communication was poor, so my brain wasn't functioning that well, the body wasn't. And you could see the parasites and you could see the microplastics and all the stuff that we have. And so that's when I knew, wow, like there's so much more to our health that's hidden inside than what'll show on, in Western medicine or some of the. And I don't know why I went on that tangent, but I wanted to share it or what you had asked me. But I thought that's important because nobody talks about that.
Yeah, and here's some realities. I always say that, when we go to the doctor, their job isn't to cure you. It isn't to discover the origin of what your ailment, is.
Mhm.
Their job is just to treat you with medication.
Right. To treat
And
the condition at the moment.
yeah, and so what's happening is you just progress, 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 and you don't know why. And off camera, I was sharing with Sherist about, gut issues. The older I got, the more I realized that certain things didn't settle well with my stomach, like sugar, and it just didn't settle well. So I thought the solution was, oh, I just need a different probiotic.
Mhm.
And in my mind, I'm like, okay, that worked. But then now the
Band-Aid.
more I'm reading and the more I'm listening to people and I'm being guided to people that have, greater knowledge about health, just health and wellness, holistic health and wellness, I'm realizing this probiotic may not be doing the trick.
No, and
And
the thing is too, sometimes you have to be careful with the probiotics because it may not be what the body actually needs. Like I don't do probiotics often. I'm only doing them while I'm in a deeper cleanse because my body needs it. But if I'm not in a detox, I don't do probiotics because it's actually not that great because what you're doing is putting an influx of a certain bacteria in there, right? Because they say that our guts need the bacteria, but what about all the other bacterias that need to happen in the body to for all the other things to function? Those we have good and bad bacterias in there, but like it actually kills all the other ones that are in our microbiome. So it's not always the best thing. And by the way, in holistic, like if you're looking for a practitioner and or even myself, but we muscle test. So we use a way to muscle test to see what your body actually needs. So that way it's not a guessing. There's actually you can look up muscle testing, you can look up kinesiology, applied kinesiology. It's the study of muscle testing. I use a pendulum because when I do it with the body, it doesn't work as well. But you can ask the body what it needs to get to a certain position, a certain thing, and then we can get straight to the root of it that way.
yeah, and I'm just thinking, my daughter struggles with headaches. She struggles since the age of 9. She went through all these tests and they never came out with a solution.
There
And
you go.
it's crazy. She still gets them. Not as intense, but it's, her migraines have been a struggle where they're so debilitating. She's like bedridden
I
until it
know the
goes away,
feeling.
or one headache lasting, days.
Hmm.
And, first off, I want to know what your grandmother was picking in the yard.
I do too. She passed away and she wouldn't tell us, but she had everything that had to do with natural herbs. So she grew herbs, she grew fruits. I mean, now I work with hundreds of herbs in different protocols that I take or we recommend, and we use different providers that make different concoctions. I actually practiced on myself years ago. I studied under a Chinese medicine doctor just for my own health. And I would go down to Chinatown in LA and he could hardly speak English and I couldn't speak that. But he found me fascinating because I would go there all the time and read on all these herbs. So then he started like, pointing to like, what are you trying to do? And I'd show him and then he'd tell me which herbs to mix. And it was so much fun. I mean, you see me light up right now. I was like, oh my God.
So for the woman that's listening to this and she's thinking, I'm struggling with chronic issues, mental clarity, it isn't there. I don't feel like I can remember things like I used to. And, I'm having to write everything down. It's impacting my life because I'm not performing at the level that I want to perform. Where does she start? Michele Davis here, host of the Boss Experience podcast, and I just want to be honest with you. If your business relies on phone calls, but you're missing calls, answering spam, or getting stuck on the phone with people that have no intention of buying from you, you're losing money. That's why I have to put you on to a little secret called AI Receptionist. AI Receptionist is your personal 24/7 executive assistant that handles calls, filters out spam, books appointments, and even makes sales for you. Your AI receptionist will even send a transcript of each call straight to your inbox so you know exactly which calls you need to follow up with. That means no more missed opportunities, just more sales for your business. So, are you ready to stop leaving money on the table? If so, just head over to CEOGamePlan.com right now and grab your free trial. Okay, back to the show.
This is so great. And by the way, this is a business planning one. So I want to tie it into that. Your business plan should have your health plan included as well. Nobody does
Absolutely.
that. Nobody does that, right? Or not a lot of people do that. So when you're thinking about your business plan, you should also be planning what are the daily rituals you're going to put behind it? How are you going to fuel your body? What are you going to do when you're in high stress situations? What do you do to relax yourself? What do you like? If you have that plan, you are going to be flowing so much better in your business because you're going to feel better. So, number one, hydration. Hydration is so underrated. I use hydrogen water to help so that when I drink it, it's absorbed better. It goes straight into the bloodstream. You get like some people get a little bit of a rush or a little bit of mental clarity at first. I didn't get those experiences right away, but now I realize it's because I was so darn toxic, right? I was dealing with all these things and by the way, people always thought I was like the most healthiest person in the room. How little did I realize that I wasn't because I did a lot of biohacking too, and I ate healthy. So here's the thing, like even if you're not in a situation that I was then, so hydration, number one, getting enough water because dehydration is at the root of a lot of things. The body, like we are, I can't remember what, maybe 80% fluid. And so if it's like an ocean, right? Like how many of you are drawn to the ocean, right? And you're like, oh my God, if I'm by the lake or the ocean, I feel so much better. It's because we are a body of water. And so having that proper water and good water, that's the other thing too. There's so much out there. That's another episode because water is like there's so much junk in our water now, even in the water we buy in stores. So
How many
anyway, so
cups should we be drinking a day?
it is, oh my gosh, it's half your weight in ounces.
Mm.
Half your weight in ounces is the average. But also, one of the things that I didn't do that well that some of my holistic practitioners always saying is like talk to your water too. Like, before you get to your water, talk about, oh, this is going to flow into me, the hydrate, like just bless the water, it's kind of like woo-woo-ish, but why not try it? If everything's a frequency on earth, everything's a frequency. So if you're like, don't want, here's the funny thing. So if you like hate water, I hate drinking water, I hate drinking water, I hate drinking water. How good is this water going to serve you if you've already put that in your head that you hate
The
drinking
energy.
water?
Yeah, you're putting the energy out there. So hydration.
Yep.
What's the
Okay.
next thing?
The next things is the more raw foods you can get in your
Mm.
diet, the better. Okay. Eat live, living foods. When we eat cooked foods, we've killed those foods. They're dead food. They're not alive, right? So the more raw foods, the better. I start off now. This was a very hard transition for me because I love to bodybuild. And so I was having to have like high loads of protein all the time and, eggs and all this kind of stuff. And so it took me a little while, but now I eat fruit at least until noon. So start your day fruits till noon, get that in your head. Because when you're coming off of sleep, you have you've gone through what do they call it, like fasting. You've been in a fasting state. And then you wake up, your body has just worked on cleaning it all these things out and like flushing, and your digestive system works in the evening when you're sleeping. Everything, our unconscious mind does all the processing our body needs while we're sleeping. So then we wake up and we put processed carbs and pesticide eggs and all this stuff in our body,
Waffles
right?
and syrup.
Waffles and all that junk. And so the body's like, wait a minute, I just finished flushing. Now I got to get to work fast. Oh, I hate you. So if we start with fruit, then we nourish right away. And so I have found that just changing that, it took me a while. Like at the beginning, I was going through withdrawals from the carbs and all the things that I was doing before, but now I thrive in it. So eating fruit is so important, and then moving into like raw, like a salad or raw veggies, and then eating your last meal is a cooked meal. That is one of the simplest ways. Like, it's not simple, I should say, it's kind of hard, but that would be a fast track. Like if you really want to start to just do something that doesn't cost you that much, it's just changing the way you eat and being familiar with like the food combining. Like some people will say, well, I'm diabetic, I'm not supposed to have sugar. Well, or fruits are bad, and I hate that they tell people that. You know why it ends up bad? Because we're eating fruit with toast, because we're eating fruit with bacon, because we're eating fruit with other things. If you just do fruit only takes about 2 hours to get through our digestive system, where bread's going to take like 6 or 7 hours or even longer. I think it's even 10 hours to get through. So the improper food combinings is really what's is why it's such an issue. So fruit, I use a superfoods, because even our foods that we purchase in the grocery store, even organic foods aren't necessarily all organic. They still have things in them. So I buy, this is what we coach our detox and gut cleanse through, a superfood that's grown. It's like they're powders, and most of them are powders or liquid form, but they're grown on regenerative farms. Regenerative farms is there are no pesticides, no toxins. They can't be within miles and miles of any type of like anything that produces any kind of toxins. And it's meant to help nourish the body at levels that we'll never be able to get from just eating food. So I do a superfood shake once a day at least. And then sometimes I add different things that I have. So that's another thing. And then the other biggest one, which this was an issue for me for so long, is sleep. I mean, it's so simple. Like we need that, what I was talking about, our body's doing all that work when we're sleeping. So if we're not getting enough sleep, we're not giving our body enough downtime. Like I could cry right now, my eyes are tearing up at how much I put this beautiful body through, and not appreciating that this beautiful body is what has me being able to experience have this human experience on earth. Without this body, like I wouldn't have all the things and see the things and do the things. And so I realized like, I didn't give you enough sleep. I didn't eat that well. Oh my gosh, like this should be a vessel that we cherish and treat so well, and we don't. So sleep is one of the ways that our body gets to regenerate itself and start to really like refresh and reset and all those things. So that's another big part. So like doing those things, breath work is another big one that I have really, really stepped into, and it just, when we could bring in more breath, like the proper, like real deep breathing, and doing it in periods of like 15 minutes where you just do consistent breath work, 10, 15 minutes, what you're doing is helping the body flow. You're bringing oxygen in, you're creating serotonin to make you feel good, but you're helping the body be able to just flow, bringing that air through, the fluids in our body. And then the last thing I would say is movement and exercise. Like we all talk, I mean, it's all, you guys, seriously, like the recipe isn't that hard.
It's
We
all
just don't
basic
do
stuff
it.
that we're not doing. It's crazy because these are things that we can start doing today. Now, quick question about, the raw vegetables. Do I get the same nutritional value whether I blend my vegetables or juice them?
So it depends on blending. If you blend them at high rates, it kind of cooks them. So be careful when you're
Oh,
blending, depending on the heat. right? So like the regenerative grown foods that we use that are superfoods, they're wind dried before they put, like they don't get ever processed. They get wind dried and then taken down. So juicing, most juicers are cold pressed now. And so they don't have that high volume of
Oh,
high. So if you're going to blend, just do it on low level so it doesn't heat up. Like I have a Vitamix, and so if I do it on the high on the Vitamix, that's just gonna it could you could cook soup in a Vitamix, right? So you just want to be careful. Other than that, either way. The other thing is if you're sometimes depending on where you're at, juicing could be better because you're taking out all those extra fiber, and fiber is good for us, but it also is harder on the digestive system because it has to digest that. So when we do juiced vegetables and fruits, that goes through the body so much faster and actually gets to the organs and the tissues quicker
mm,
because it doesn't have to go through the digestion process as much as the fibers do.
good to know. So I know people are wondering, that was a lot of information. Your head is probably spinning. You're probably thinking about the issues you're having with your own body, whether it's chronic disease or just you're feeling different and you don't know what it is and you can't get a straight answer. When you ask the doctor, they just want to give you more medication. I brought Sherest here because she has a coaching program that works on helping you understand your body and pretty much cleanse your system. Can you quickly share, what you do and how people can reach out to you if they're interested in learning more about your coaching service?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm starting I love to do it in group cohorts. So, and I'm also like the queen of teaching people how to do cohorts. So that's why I practice what I preach in that 90 days. 90 days is a good time to really see better results. There's a 30-day you could do, but the 90 days where you really start to see very good results. And also doing it in community with other people that are doing it. You get the momentum, you get the inspiration, you get the accountability, and so in the 90 days, we go through not only taking you through a gut cleanse and a light detox so that people can experience their first like true detox in a good way because we go through first nourishing the body and so it's guided every week with recipes and different like everything you need to do between different type of movement and exercise and but also educating you on the parts of your body and the different ways that you can fuel your brain. And really, this is meant for the busy entrepreneur, the leader, the person, because we also get to talk biz in this experience, right? How's it affecting how how we're doing business and our brain? But you will start to see, most people will start to see, like if you have inflammation, will start to go down. Most people will start to, the headaches will release, their gut problems will go away, or like there's so many different things that you'll feel so much more clarity and energy. And then I'll also share other things which I haven't shared here, different ways, the biohacks that I use to help the cellular communication, to help your performance, to help your brain health, and herbs, right? I'll share herbs, and depending on what everyone will do wants to do, I'll do an initial assessment for free as part of the group program, which is like a $500 value. So everybody's going to get their own one-on-one assessment to do so that I could go in and really see. And I'll also do muscle testing to see what it is your body really needs. So it won't be like misguided because you're going to know exactly, and you'll get to also be educated on how you can test yourself. So it is like nothing out there. And I'm just really excited to like blend my business and health experience to really bring this to an incredible experience for everyone.
Yeah, because the reality is, as entrepreneurs, whether you're a coach or different type of service provider, you have to take care of your body. What is
Mhm.
the point of trying to make all of this money if you are placing yourself at risk of being, negatively impacted by your health? And there's a lot of people walking around with a lot of chronic health conditions, whether it's high blood pressure, diabetes, headaches, lack of clarity. They will tell you, oh, it's menopause, or, it's
Oh,
some kind of woman issue, and we're not getting the answers that we need to get from the doctor. So we need to look at our own resources. And I don't think it's going to get better. I think it's going to become more challenging when we look at healthcare and really getting the help that we need, because a lot of things that we're experiencing are things that are reversible. And that's
Absolutely.
no one's talking about that because,
Right.
yeah, it's reversible, but we have to have the tools, we have to have the knowledge, and we have to have the resources so that we know how to apply things in the way they should be applied so that we're not like waiting to be on dialysis or waiting to be, allowing our disease to progress or our condition to progress. So, how can people find you, Sherest?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram. You can find me there on LinkedIn, depending if if you're in business, I'm on there too. On
Is it
Facebook,
Sherest
but Sherist,
Rodriguez?
it's Sherist. On Instagram, it's just Sherist because nobody had that name, so I got lucky. On Facebook, it's Sherist Rod because that's a funny story. Somebody did have my name, but and also the 90daygutcleanse.com, so you can find me there. Sherest.com. And yeah, I'm really excited. One of the things that people don't realize, and what you were saying right now, it's not going to get better. It's I'm hoping it is actually going to get a little bit better now that there's a lot of talk about what toxins and what glyphosate and what is the foods. We've been hearing some movement now that they're exposing finally what everybody thought that people like me were crazy talking about, all the toxins in the food and all the things that are not allowed by law in other countries that are in our foods, but it's a process to clean that out of your system. And so that's what I want to invite you into, like allowing that vibrancy and that health to come to you so that you can actually release these things that you don't deserve and don't need anymore. So
And
I'm
the
excited
wonderful
about
thing, yeah, the wonderful thing about knowledge is, once you learn it, you can share that knowledge with your family and you can bring it back to your community
it. Yes.
about, how to stay healthy, and how to reverse disease and how to grow our own food, because I'm seeing a lot of that too. People growing their own food. And, I think we're evolving into some different times when it comes to how we're eating and how we're thinking about food. And it's going to take us a while to get there, but I
Yeah.
definitely think we're headed in the right direction. So before we close out, Sherez, when you think about the boss experience, tell me what that means to you.
The boss experience, to me, it sounds like being in that true 100% you, your authentic self, that boss you who feels great, who's just, all in. And I don't know, like this experience of life, we've got to feel good to be in this experience. And so, yeah, those are the things that come to my mind.
Well, thank you so much for contributing to season 8 of the Boss Experience podcast. All of the links that Sherez mentioned will be in the description. But if you're listening and you're unable to write it down, go back, review the episode because, you need to start thinking, about what you're consuming, how you're managing your health, because you don't want something to happen. And then it's like, oh, okay, now I want to reverse it. Now I want to see, what I can do to, change my situation. And you don't want things to be to the point of progression beyond, being able to reverse it. So thank you so much. Your knowledge has been enlightening simply because, this has been something I've been really interested in. Didn't think it was a part of business planning until last year. I started really reading it and, because I was feeling blah, the lack of mental clarity. And when you don't have mental clarity, you can't be creative in your business. You can't develop and you can't, flourish the way you want to in your business. And so all of these things are important. And we don't have to take medication, to clear it up. A lot of times it's just eliminating something, changing, bad eating habits and being on the path to
And
better
nourishing
health.
the body, nourishing
Ex-
the body. That's number one. We got to remember to
Exactly.
nourish it.
So thank you so much, Shiraz. I really appreciate you taking the time, to be here today, all the way from across the United States. And I already know living in New York, that I have so many toxins in my body. So this has been enlightening for me. I'm sure it's been enlightening for my audience. And I just want to thank you so much for being here.
Thank you
And
for having me.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to another episode of the Boss Experience podcast. Please tune in every week. Every week, we have a new episode released wherever you get your podcast. Thank you so much and see you soon. Thank you for tuning in to the Boss Experience podcast. Don't forget to leave a review for this episode and tune in next time.